Was Silksong or just hype? Maybe. Allow me to present my arguments for and against. Objection! I must say, I love how huge and alive this game is. Like, there's a lot of content. You don't expect it as you play, but you slowly start to find out it's like never ending. It just keeps going. I will say though, the platforming itself is tough, no doubt. Sometimes borderline sadistic. Oh, you accidentally wandered off the wrong way? Here, have some spikes for your trouble. Excellent. What, was Gravity feeling lonely and needed a pointy friend? But the movement is really smooth, and it does make exploring very fun, especially when you start gaining different abilities like the shoot and wall cling. And when you do get them, the platforming really starts to get fleshed out and shit starts to hit the fan very quickly. And I know this isn't unique to Silksong, but all areas that later become accessible due to acquiring a new ability is really nice. Cause you're always thinking, where did I see an issue like this before? It makes backtracking actually quite fun. This paired with the seemingly endless amount of hidden paths in this game makes the exploration so enjoyable and fun. You'll be bashing those walls and ceilings and running it back like a multiple times domestic violence offender. We're going international with this one, and it's worth it too. The exploration, that is, and not domestic violence. Cause the rewards are really useful for later things like boss encounters, navigating new terrain, or clowning on previous ones. Suck shit, Spikes. The story honestly is pretty basic. You know, the kinda you'll figure out as you play along formula. You kinda find yourself in a strange place. Not the strongest point. But what is the strongest point is the boss fight and combat mechanics. Now, the combat mechanics are quite diverse due to two things, the cresses and the tools. The cresses change the way your basic attacks come out to either make it faster, increasing range, or just making them AoE. But you also have different amounts of tools you can equip for each one. And the tools themselves basically have you stocked up and ready for almost anything the game throws at you. And there will be a lot of throwing. Shit got you ready for being lost in the forest. But they also even gave us an inbuilt parry, that when you time your attacks with the enemies, you get a parry. It's basically every masher's wet dream. All this together gives you a lot of tomfoolery. Which now leads me to the boss fights themselves. They're hard, like my cock, or calculus. They also like to have a lot of nonsense too. Like every stunt in the book, they got it. Fake death, suicide bombing, outrageously fast moves. Yep, they got you, but thanks to the tools at your disposal, you kinda even out the playing field, making the boss fights sometimes be almost like a boss rush where it's a mad dash to the finish line before they even get a chance to pull a fast one on you. And in the times that they do manage to pull the bullshits on you, you are equipped to survive and last through the battle. And it's really satisfying too when you defeat them. I will say this, I never have had my eyes more glued to a screen during a boss fight than, I don't know, maybe Cuphead. It's pretty full on. And then there's a lot of variety in each boss fight, a different thing to worry about each time.
Keep the only dough.
Now, despite everything it does good, which it is really good, it does come with some terms and conditions where it almost leaves you thinking why a lot of the times. So when I was talking about how fun and rewarding exploring is, I also forgot to mention how fucking perilous the hidden areas can get. So my reward for exploring and being curious is pain and suffering. I understand, but that's not even my biggest gripe. What gets me is the constant need and obsession to spend money. I didn't know Falun was a capitalistic society. Who is your corporate overlord? And how much does he pay? It unnaturally inflates gameplay hours. It honestly didn't feel necessary for them to add it in. There is no worse feeling than being on 1 HP and finally finding a resting spot to only realize you have to spend money. The maps are fine, I can live without them, but the resting checkpoints is taking it too far.
Used to be cool.
I didn't know Silksong was called Farmland because all I do here is farm for fucking money. Speaking of unnecessary, whilst I mentioned before the boss fights were fair and actually challenging but fun, the same cannot be said about the runbacks and mob bosses. I don't mind the runbacks, but I feel like this game is just overusing it. The most apparent example is the run back to the final judge in the Blaster's Steps. This one has got to be one of the most annoying walkbacks of all time. Annoying platforming, obnoxious enemies, and the environmental sand wind. That just adds unnecessary delay because now I gotta wait before I can even attempt the platform to go fight the boss. It makes the boss fight that is actually quite fun and challenging to just being annoying, and it didn't even involve the boss. I tend to find this game likes to throw a lot of bullshit at you, but no more bullshit has ever been served to you than during mob boss fights. These fights most of the time are just a slight inconvenience, and it's due to flying enemies because they like to run away. The grounded mobs are whatever. However, the other times they are straight up just throwing bullshit at you, and it feels so unfair where you're either just rushing one of them down to get some breathing space or just holding onto the walls for dear life. Two examples I can think of. The duos in the Hunter's March is such a boss rush, cause one, the arena is obscenely small and tight, and the Scar Guard's attacks covers so much, you don't get any breathing room if you let the flying enemy stick around. So the best option most of the time is random bullshit go in a desperate attempt to get the Spear Scar out of the way so you can actually have a boss fight. But this fight was optional, so you can always come back later when you're stronger. But the mob boss fight for one of the Citadel songs? Fuck me. This is one of the worst designed boss fights I have ever played. Not also is it a mandatory fight to progress the story, but they felt like doubling the usual wave and putting more and even stronger enemies too. But the cherry on top is that you have a boss fight and then a duo boss fight of the same enemy at the end. What's worse than one boss? Two bosses. What's worse than two bosses? Having no fucking space. These guys' attacks cover so much screen that most of the time I was just clinging onto the wall or dashing mid-air to cling to the other wall. It really felt like they were just trying to make this boss fight as panic-inducing as possible without much options for the player. I remember the first time I did this boss fight, I quit after like an hour, decided to go exploring, get the double jump, get the blade shoot, and then came back to only barely just beat this fight. It just feels like very bad game design where it was just done because they wanted to be cool. No real reason, just for the sake of being hard. And funnily enough, the bosses do get harder, but because I basically got PTSD after this boss fight, they were nowhere near as challenging despite having more outrageous moves. Until you get to Act 3 and the bullshit darkness nonsense and everything spawning fucking minions. So I've heard. I'm not foolish. I'm good. I'll play it another time. As far as I'm concerned, I finished it. Fuck off. I think overall Silksong has without set a new standard, that among all the trash coming out these days, quality made games that are complete are still coming out. I don't want to take that away from them because this game has been a flawless experience, because the content and level of polish really is S-class. It's just unfortunate they kind of got caught in the almost being hard is cool trend where they kind of went too far off the deep end with this one. This game honestly is just way too hard, and I'm sure people will say get good, but seriously, it's just trying too hard for the sake of being hard. So was it all hype? Partially. It honestly just went more for the hardcore fans and us schmucks got caught up in it, to be honest. But at the same time, it's fair criticism. And if anyone says it's hate...
Don't say that, because that irritates me.